agreed on. So that was a good thing. So I think one of the biggest things coming out of that is that the All-Star game will now no longer decide home field advantage for the World Series. Um, Also, there's now going to be a 10-day disabled list. Um, those were the two main things. I think there are going to be a couple more off days too, like 4 more off days built into the season for teams, which I think is probably a good thing because teams usually would have at least one, if not two, stretches of playing like 20 games in a row throughout the season, which I think was a bit much. So what did you think of all the changes and things that were agreed upon with this new CBA?
Well, I think it's great that we had baseball because that was really scary to know that we could potentially be going through spring with no baseball and summer, again, with no baseball. That would have been very upsetting. But I think it's interesting, the changes. It'll be very interesting to see how those changes are affecting, the playoffs because like you said, they changed the home field advantage rule where the league that wins the All-Star game will not necessarily get to host, opening game of the World Series. It'll go to whoever has the best regular season. It'll go to the pennant winner with their better regular season record. They will get to host and have home field advantage. So I'm interested to see if that changes things, going forward. I think the days of rest are better too because, like you said, the season's a grind. They could go all those days without getting the rest. So that'll also be interesting too to have, athletes, all of them, rest. So I like it. I think it's gonna be a good change. But the only question I have is with the All-Star game, with having that home field advantage factor, how are you going to get people to actually watch it and care about it? Or do you think it shouldn't be? It should just be for fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's better that the team with the better record gets home field advantage in the World Series. I didn't think it really made sense for an all-star game of players that aren't even playing in the World Series are determining the outcome of who gets to host Game 7 and Game 1 and stuff of a World Series. So I think I think baseball fans are still going to watch the MLB All-Star game even if it doesn't count for anything, even if it's just an exhibition game. It might make it lose some viewers or something, but I think the All-Star game just as a game in and of itself will still be entertaining because it's the best players in the league going up against each other. So I think in my opinion at least, baseball has the best All-Star game out of all the leagues. Even now that it's going to be meaningless, I think it'll still be the best All-Star game. Just because they're still trying to win. Like they're still playing the same game. In the other games for the other leagues, they don't try to play any defense whatsoever. It's just who can score the most touchdowns or get the most 3 points or dunks or whatever. So I think the gameplay of the baseball game I think won't be affected. I think each team will still try and win, and now that the game's meaningless, I don't think that'll mean pitchers will just now lob pitches up there. I think it'll still be a competitive, fun game to watch, even though it won't decide anything.
No, I can see that. I mean, they're out there, competing. They obviously. I don't think you'd ever play to lose, right? I mean, so obviously they're going to want to win. So, that was one part that I thought was cool about it, that it actually meant something. But I can see the other side of that too, where they would want to make it more fair in terms of the team that has the best regular season, because this year the Cubs, had the better record than the Indians, but they still had to go on the road for opening that World Series, and they ended in Cleveland because they had the home field advantage. So I can see how that's not really fair to that team that has the better regular season. But I just thought it was cool how it gave them something to play for at the end of the day. If whoever those All-Stars teams were to be, the two standing, that winning that All-Star game would help them potentially. But I'm sure they might be able to find other ways, to get people to watch still. I mean, it's the All-Stars, so I think people are going to watch regardless, because they want to see how they do competing against each other. But I just thought that was a cool factor that they had going. But that'll be interesting with all these new rule changes going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was weird that, like, essentially, like, this past year, like, Eric Hosmer and Salvador Perez, like, gave the Cleveland Indians home field advantage in the World Series. When, like, the Royals and Indians are, like, in the same division and rivals, so. And I just think it didn't really make sense to me about, like, how team players on other teams are determining, like, if you're going to get home field advantage. Because, like, I think the Cubs, like, should have had home field advantage. I mean, they were the better team throughout the regular season than the Indians were. So it was weird, like, seeing the series start in Cleveland rather than in Chicago. But like, for baseball fans, I don't think it'll have that much of it. Like, baseball is like my favorite sport to watch, and I'll still watch the All-Star game, even though it doesn't mean anything, because it's still the best players going up against each other. They're still playing it like a regular baseball game, like I said. So, in my opinion, it's not going to have that much of an impact on it. But yeah, I think some of the other changes were good too. I think giving a couple more off days is good. The 10-day DL is probably a good thing as well, because like now teams, if they knew a player was only going to miss like a week, they probably weren't going to put them on the DL because they didn't want to be without them for 15 days. So that made teams play like a man short for like a couple games. Now, if someone's going to be out for like a week, they'll probably just put them on the 10-day DL and be able to call up another player for that period of games to be able to play. So I think that'll be good for the teams as well, and it'll help hopefully prevent like further injuries and stuff, because a pitcher can now just have to miss like one start or something if they go on the DL, instead of having to miss like 2 or 3. So I think I was pretty happy with all the changes. I thought it was. I mean, the best part was that it got agreed on something and something got done, which was good. So I think we'll now that that's out of the way, I think we'll start to see more free agent signings now that teams like know what the new CBA is and with the money and stuff like that. But one of the ones that has already happened that affects local teams is the Mets giving $110 million to Yoenis Cespedes, which makes him I think the highest yearly.
Yeah, that was insane.
Yearly paid outfielder in like history, I think it was, something like that. Because not in terms of overall contract, not the 110, but I think just yearly salary, he's making like $27.5 million per year or something like that. So the Mets actually going out there and splashing the cash, I guess you can say, to be cliche, and spending some big money on Cespedes, who is definitely, I don't think anyone would argue, he's like the main source of their offense, the most important hitter in their lineup. So now they'll have to make some changes based on that, but I mean, I'm not a Mets fan, but I guess in my outside opinion, I think it was good, because their offense without him is totally like nowhere even near as good as it was as their offense with him.
No, absolutely. They're going to have a lot of questions to answer because they have, Cespedes, they have Curtis Granderson, Jay Bruce, Michael Conforto, and Juan Lagares, that's 5 outfielders for 3 available spots. So they're going to have to figure some things out where they want to put people, or even trade a couple, to help with some salary right there. But the Mets are just going to have to figure out what they want to do here, because I think what I've been hearing is with the reacquisition of Cespedes, keeping him, they might have to trade Jay Bruce, or get rid of him. That was one of the thoughts that the team was thinking about. But you're definitely right. They're definitely better with Cespedes than without him, for sure, because he brings a lot of power to lineup. He brings good hitting. He's just overall a great player. So I think that was a good move for them to retain him. I thought they were going to, because I didn't think they would let a player like that just walk, and try to refigure their offense, because he's played such an important part of their turnaround, making it into the playoffs, and even to the World Series a few years ago.
So I think they did reports saying they're trying to trade either Bruce or Granderson, which I don't think that would hurt them all that much. I mean, it's good to have depth, but I mean, Bruce and Granderson are like similar type players. So I think it'd probably help them if they were to trade away one of them and get some different types of players back. But yeah, I think bringing Cespedes back was definitely important for them and something that they needed to do, because they still have all their young pitchers on their roster, but they needed to shore up their lineup, and I think they could even try and find one more hitter somewhere, even if it's just like something off the bench or something. But I think that was definitely a catcher too. I think they need a better catcher. But I think that was definitely an important move for the Mets to make in re-signing him. And then you have the Yankees. They haven't done all that much yet, but there's still a lot of talk. Possibly bringing back Chapman, going after some starting pitchers, like a Rich Hill, for instance. I think they're trying to get a DH. So they're talking about Beltran, bringing him back again, possibly Encarnacion. But there's a lot of, after trading away McCann a couple weeks ago, there's a lot of ways they could go with free agency. I think pitching, though, it needs to start with pitching, and I think they need to try and get Chapman. That should be their first priority, and if they can't get him, then get like a Kenley Jansen or someone like that, and then a starter too. But I think before they worry about offense and a DH, I think they need to sign some pitchers.
No, I absolutely agree. I think doesn't good pitching trump good hitting, right? So you'd rather start with getting your good pitchers right before you get the good hitters. So that makes a lot of sense, and I think they should try to shore up their pitching, strengthen that before they go after the hitters. But I think it's great to hear, because I have an article here. It says the Yankees are thought to be one of the finalists for their free agent Encarnacion, who had 42 home runs in American League, leading 127 RBIs last season. So that'd be good to add a little bit of power to the lineup. But we also need pitching too, so I think that's also important. I think we should figure that out first before we start adding other players to it, like you said. But that'll be interesting to see who they decide to pick up. If they go after Beltran again, whom they had and then released. That'll be very interesting to see if he eventually reunites with the Yankees, to see if Chapman comes back as well. Because I think the Cubs, they want to keep him too. They don't want to lose him. He was crucial for them in their World Series when, he pitched a lot. So it'll just be interesting to see how this all shakes out here in terms of if Encarnacion goes with the Yankees, if he goes elsewhere, if the other free agents go elsewhere. Because other than the Yankees, there are other finalists in the run for him. The Blue Jays, obviously, because that's who he previously played for. So there's other teams out there that want him. But Encarnacion's agent has said, I guess, that he'll likely sign a contract this week or early next week. So I think a decision's coming in soon in terms of where he wants to go. But how would you feel about that, getting Encarnacion?
Well, I mean, he's definitely a good hitter. He is. I'm not sure how old he is. He's definitely an older player, in his mid 30s.
33, yeah, mid 30s, yeah, yep.
So it depends on how many years it would be for, because I wouldn't want to go more than like 3 years or something. Maybe 4, but that's pushing it a little. Because then we just have ourselves in what we have been, like another Mark Teixeira situation or Alex Rodriguez situation or something like that. So I wouldn't want to give him too many years, but I mean, he was definitely, I think, the best hitter in the Blue Jays lineup last year. He seemed to also crush the Yankees, so it'd be good to, even if he goes like any team that's not in the AL East, I think that would be good, because the Yankees would only have to see him like 6 or 7 games as opposed to 19. But yeah, if he came to the Yankees, there's no doubt about it. He'd make, for next year's lineup, he'd make them stronger, and he'd be. It's beginning to change now with their younger players, but usually the Yankees the past couple of years have just been like a lefty powered team. They haven't had that many right-handed batters. They've usually just had left-handed batters or switch hitters, because they're trying to play to their ballpark and the short right field wall. But Encarnacion would be a good right-handed power bat to get. Now that's sort of beginning to change, because they've traded away like McCann, who was a lefty, Teixeira was a switch hitter, and now their young guys are all pretty much all right-handers. Sanchez is a righty, Judge is a righty, Austin, Greg Bird is like the only lefty out of their young core of hitters. So he definitely add a lot in that lineup. I mean, just imagine like your Sanchez batting 3 and Encarnacion batting 4 in a lineup. That'd be a pretty good lineup to have.
That would be great, yeah. That'd be awesome. You definitely add some much needed power, to their bats for sure. But it'll be interesting to see who they get, because I see another report here saying that Aroldis Chapman would love to be a Yankee again. So it'll be interesting to see if they could get him back. Obviously, Chicago, they're going to fight him, but I think we would win that battle since we have more money, right, than the Cubs do. So
I think the Yankees don't want to give him more than $100 million. I think I saw that somewhere, and I think that's what he's asking for. So I don't know. We'll have to see how that plays out. I think the Astros, though, are still, they're a team to look out for, because I mean they just made the trade with the Yankees to get McCann.
Yeah, McCann, yeah. They're in the running for Encarnacion, one of the teams.
Yeah, they really want a DH, so I think they're trying really hard to get either Encarnacion or Beltran to fill that DH role. So I think they're a team to watch, and it wouldn't be a surprise for one of the big names to go to the Astros. And I think the Red Sox as well obviously need a DH to replace David Ortiz. So it'll be interesting to see where Encarnacion and Beltran end up.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Do you think either of them would go?
I'm not really sure. It depends, because Toronto has quite a few free agents. Because I think Batista's a free agent, right? Encarnacion's a free agent, right? So they have quite a few of their good hitters as free agents, and I heard they can't keep them all. So it'll be interesting to see who they value the other. I think that'll impact. If one of the ones stays, because he's still considering the Blue Jays as well. This is Blue Jays, the Yankees, and I think the Astros are really the top 3 finalists. There may be a few others in there, but that's all I'm seeing is in terms of the real finalists for now. But I mean, players go all over the place. I mean, look at David Price. He was in Tampa, then he went to Boston. Well, went to Toronto, then to Boston. So I mean, that's 3 different teams right there, all within the same division. So that he moved around a lot. So players can do that. But you're definitely right. Houston's going to want a DH. Same thing with Boston.
Yeah, like Beltran, just for instance, has moved around a lot too.
Yeah.
From 2011 to now, he's been on the Mets, the Giants, the Cardinals, the Yankees, and the Rangers. And now possibly a new team, depending on where he goes. Possibly the Astros or the Red Sox, or possibly coming back to the Yankees. I think those are probably the 3 most likely destinations for him. So, but yeah, that's the free agency world right now. A lot of in the old days, 70s or so, or around that, even earlier, players just stayed in one place pretty much. Maybe 2 or 3 teams, but for their careers. But you didn't really see team players playing for more than 3 teams. They usually just stayed put. But now, with free agency and trades, you see guys playing for 8 or 9 teams throughout their career.
Yeah, no, it's definitely crazy. It's insane, how frequently that can happen. But no, definitely be interesting to see, what players decide to go where, because you never know. Maybe these guys decide to stay. Maybe, Chapman is happy in Chicago and wants a chance to, get back-to-back World Series titles. Maybe he decides to stay there because he figures they have the best chance, to get in that position. Same thing with Encarnacion. Maybe he stays with Toronto because he's been there a while and their offense was just ridiculously good. So maybe he wants to stay with that rather than taking a gamble on another team elsewhere. But definitely interesting because there's a lot of teams out there competing for similar things. Like we've said, Houston, Boston, they need DHs, and the Yankees do too. But I think you brought up a good point earlier, which is that the Yankees really do want to avoid a situation where they get in an A-Rod situation where they're stuck with an older player, paying them a lot of money for a long time. I think they definitely want to avoid that, so they want to be careful with how much they're giving out in salaries, right, to their players that they acquire.
Yeah.
But I think it's good that they do that because they don't want to be stuck with a guy that's old for multiple years when they're not going to produce, or be effective.
Especially the bigger free agents are coming within the next year, 2 years. I think maybe 3 years. I'm not sure, but yeah, Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, all those guys. So I'm not sure they'll probably want to save their money for those guys rather than give a ton of money to a DH in their mid to late 30s. I would think because that's what they had been doing and it hadn't really worked out all that well. So now they're trying to get younger, which I think is a good thing for them.
Oh yeah, definitely. They need to get younger now. Get that youth movement back like they had, when they first signed Jeter, right? And that whole movement they had way back in the good old days. They need to get that again. They need to get a solid core of young players to come to the Yankees so they can be there for a while, win a couple championships. That's really what the ideal situation is for them. But maybe they really have that. With players like Gary Sanchez, Rob Refsnyder, all the prospects coming up to the Yankees too. That'll be interesting to see how they do. But it won't help, to get maybe a few bats, that have had some experience, like the Encarnacions of the world. So we'll just have to see what happens there. Also, another interesting prospect is Chris Sale, right? A pitcher that's out there. There's been rumors about him for a while, getting traded or getting, picked up as a free agent. Where do you think he ends up? Or do you think the Yankees would pursue him?
Well, he's not a free agent, so it'd have to be a trade. So I don't want the Yankees to really make a trade for a big name because I think they'd be giving up too much. They just got their farm system to a good place, and if they made a trade, they'd have to trade a lot of those guys away. So I think like personally, I wouldn't want Chris Sale on the Yankees because it'd have to be via trade, and B, like there was a lot of like reports on like him, like some of the stuff he did on with the White Sox, like he stormed out of one game or something, or not, because he like wouldn't wear like a throwback uniform or something like that.
Yeah, it's something crazy like that. Not sure. That's a lot of off the field stuff to deal with. Maybe more than what he's worth.
I think that's why I didn't really want them to sign Cespedes either, because of all his stuff with like the injuries and the playing golf and locker room stuff and all that. But yeah, so now that the CBA is agreed upon, it should be interesting to see where all the like more moves and free agents should start to be signed. So hopefully there'll be some guys signed. Some of these big names we've been talking about will be signed by next week's show. So
yeah, another name to throw out there just real quick is McCutchen, because he might be traded from the Pirates.
Yeah,
the Yankees are listed as one of the landing spots.
Yeah, no, I do not want that either.
Yeah,
I think the Nationals are wanting to try and get him.
Yeah, they discussed a deal.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where these guys go. So with about 20 or so minutes left, I think we should get into the football picks now to make sure we give enough time to that.
Absolutely, yep. Let's do it.
So Cowboys won a close game last night against the Vikings.
Don't remind me.
To go
God.
to 11-1. So that started off week 13 of the NFL season. So getting into Sunday's games, we begin with two good teams, two playoff teams right now. The Chiefs against the Falcons.
This one's going to be an interesting game because I think it's going to really help us, figure out, can this team, really make it far in the playoffs. Obviously the Chiefs, they proved that they can beat a Super Bowl winning team because they beat the Broncos on the road in overtime, 30-27. That was a crazy game too, because Denver was actually made a really questionable decision to go for a field goal where it was really far. They didn't make it, and then the Chiefs were the ones that ended up winning. Instead of maybe punting it away or going for it, they kicked a really long field goal that really didn't have a great chance. But Kansas City beat them. I'm not sure. The Falcons, they're still a little shaky. They're at 7-4. Kansas City at 8-3. But Atlanta's at home, and I feel like they could beat the Chiefs. So I'll go with them. But I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a close game either way.
So you're picking Atlanta?
Yeah, just because they're at home. But I think this could go either way. It's going to be a close game.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a tough game to call because I think both teams are pretty much evenly matched. As I said, both playoff teams right now. So I think it could go back and forth, and either team could win. I'll go with the Chiefs, though, just because I think they have a little more experience and their defense is a little better. They are on the road, yes, but I think they're just overall a slightly better team than the Falcons are. I think like the Chiefs, yes, they did lose a game to Tampa Bay a couple weeks ago, but I think the Chiefs have more of a likelihood. The Falcons, have more of a likelihood to like lose games every now and then and like not show up and play their best. So I'm gonna go with the Chiefs on that. So next is the Detroit Lions against the New Orleans Saints.
This is interesting because Detroit, I feel like they're one of those teams that really snuck out of nowhere, and now I think they're leading the NFC North. So the Detroit Lions are really good. The Saints have struggled. They're still under 500 at 5-6. Again, I think this might be a difficult game to call because I think it could go either way. I feel like the Superdome is a hard place to play in New Orleans, but that doesn't mean the Lions, they can't win because they're leading the NFC North. They've beaten some good teams, this season. I guess I'll just stick with my trend of picking the home team because I really do feel like that the Superdome is a hard place to play for visiting teams. New Orleans is a pretty good home team, so I'm going to go with them, but I think in a close game.
Yeah, I think, again, this game will be close too, but I think I'll disagree again, and I'll take the Lions. I think the Lions are a pretty good team. No one really has talked about them because they don't have like the recognition of like the Packers, and they didn't get off to a hot start like the Vikings did. But they're leading their division right now, and they just beat the Vikings on Thanksgiving, so they have a couple extra days of rest. I think Stafford is a pretty good quarterback, although he doesn't really get talked about that much either. So I think the Lions are playing pretty well. The Saints, they have a pretty good offense, but I'm not sure how good their defense is. So I will pick the Lions in that one. Next is the Patriots, and now having to play without Gronkowski, who just got injured in last game against the Jets with his back, and now most likely reports are he'll be out for the rest of the season. So now they will have to start playing again without him as they host the Rams on Sunday.
I don't think this is even a question. Patriots are playing at home. They're very tough to beat. Foxborough, even more or less with a bad team like the Rams. The Rams are they're pretty bad. So I'm going to go with the Patriots all the way, even without Gronk.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it'll be that close. The Patriots should win fairly comfortably. I think Gronkowski loss hurts them in the playoffs, but I think it's still in the regular season against some of these teams like the Rams, I think the Patriots will still win pretty easily. So next is the Broncos against a very bad Jacksonville Jaguars team at 2-9.
Oh, this not a question in my mind that Denver's going to win this game. They're going to want to get back on track after that very tough loss to Kansas City that they definitely should have won because they were at home. And like I said earlier, I don't know what they were thinking going for that very long and very hard field goal when they had other options to try to win that game. But this will be a great rebound game for them. Get back on track, on the winning track, that is. And after this, they'll have Tennessee. Then they'll host the Patriots. So I think these next two games are going to be a good tune-up for them. Work out some issues they're having so they can defeat New England. But I'm going to go with the Broncos all the way.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to pick the Jaguars against the Broncos, regardless of where the game's being played.
Yeah.
I think the Broncos are just a much better team. So let's see. Next, after that game, we have the Houston Texans traveling to Green Bay to take on the Packers.
This game is interesting because both teams have been up and down this year. Houston 6-5, Green Bay is 5-6. The game is being played at Lambeau in Wisconsin, and I think even though Green Bay's having a rough season, I think they're still a tough team to beat at home. So I'm going to take them. Plus, I trust Aaron Rodgers way more than I trust Brock Osweiler. There's no doubt about that. So I'm going to go Packers all the way over the Texans.
Yeah, neither team is really playing that well right now. The Packers have lost 4 out of their last 5 games, and the Texans have lost 3 out of their last 5 games. But I'll go with the Packers because they're at home. The Texans are only 1-4 on the road. And the Packers just picked up a win last week against the Eagles on Monday Night Football. So I will agree and pick the Packers in that one. Speaking of the Eagles, then, they have the next game. They are in Cincinnati taking on the Bengals.
This might be a tough game to call, too, because Philadelphia is 5-6, Cincinnati is 3-7-1. Obviously, Philly has a better record, but I feel like both teams have been kind of inconsistent here. Cincinnati's just played a lot of really good teams early on, which I think is why the record is where it is. But they just haven't looked really that good. So I think Philadelphia will win that game. I mean, they did beat Pittsburgh pretty badly, and Pittsburgh is regarded as one of the better teams in the league from year to year. So I'm going to go with Philadelphia, the Eagles.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to pick the Eagles as well. The Bengals, they're just, as you just said, and then as I said, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, or whenever they were playing the Giants, that the Bengals' losses have all come to pretty good teams. But now they've had losses to the Bills and the Ravens as well. They haven't won in four or five games, and AJ Green is now injured, which I think hurts them a lot. So I will go with the Eagles in that game. Next, Aaron's game. He couldn't be here today, but his Dolphins will be in Baltimore taking on the Ravens.
This could be another hard game too. Miami's at 7-4, Baltimore's at 6-5, so similar records. Miami's on a tear though. They're doing really well. The team's playing well. They got a good player, J.E. Ajayi, who's doing really well. Tannehill's been doing well. Again, they haven't played the best teams. The last two they've played is at L.A., the Rams, and versus the 49ers, which are two not very good teams. This could. I feel like this could go either way, honestly. I would say Baltimore's going to want to hang on to their spot atop the AFC North division. I think this could go either way, but I'm just going to pick Baltimore because they're at home, and I feel like I would trust Flacco a little bit more than Tannehill to be more consistent. And like I said, Baltimore is definitely going to want to be playing for good seeding in the AFC. They're going to hold on to that top spot in the AFC North. So I'm going to go with them.
I will pick the Miami Dolphins. They're on a 6-game winning streak right now. I think they're playing very good football right now. I don't think the Ravens are all that good. I know they're 6-5, but I'm just not really fully bought in on the Ravens. I think the Dolphins, their offense has been scoring a lot of points, and I think that'll continue. I know it's in Baltimore, so it'll probably be a close game because of that. But I just think the Dolphins, as you said, with Ajayi and Tannehill, I think they just have a little bit better of an offense. I don't think Flacco and the Ravens offense has been playing as well as they have in the past this season. So I'll go with the Dolphins. Next, the final 1 o'clock game is a battle of two very bad teams. But someone's going to have to win it unless it ties, I guess. But the 1-10 San Francisco 49ers play the 2-9 Chicago Bears.
Yeah, no kidding about that. These are two very, very bad teams. Something's going to have to give here because they're both very bad. They have similar records. Someone's have to win this game, like you said, unless they tie. I'll go Chicago because I even though they're both very bad, I think Chicago is the better of the bad teams. So I'll pick them, plus they're at home.
Yeah, I'll go with the Bears, too. They're at home. It looked at least somewhat competitive when they played the Giants when I saw that game. I haven't seen San Francisco play at all this year, nor do I really want to because they're horrible. So I'll go with the Bears. Then we have the Oakland Raiders hosting the Buffalo Bills.
Oakland's on a tear, 9-2. They're leading the AFC West. They beat the Broncos. I mean, this team is legit. The Oakland Raiders. I think they're going to definitely be one of the top seeds in the AFC. I think they're going to win their division. It'll be a good tune-up because they go on the road for a couple of games after that at Kansas City and San Diego, two teams that are good. San Diego not so much as Kansas City, but they've proven they can beat a team like the Broncos. So I'm definitely going to go with Oakland Raiders, especially at home. I think they're tough to beat at home. Derek Carr has been doing well, so I'm going to take them with the Bills.
Yeah, I agree. I think Oakland will definitely win. Buffalo did get a win last week, and they're not a bad team. Buffalo's like a middle of the pack team. They're 6-5, but I think Oakland at home will definitely win. Next is then the game that I am most interested in. The New York Giants will be in Pittsburgh taking on the Steelers.
Gotta go with the Giants. Gotta go with our team here. 8-3 versus 6-5. Pittsburgh's been up and down. The Giants have been on a tear. They have been absolutely on a tear. They've just basically reversed what's happened to them last year in the past couple years and just totally reversed that. Let's see how many. What they won, like 6 in a row or something like that? Yeah, 6 in a row. 6 in a row. So I think that's going to keep going. They're just playing really well right now, even though some of those teams have been the best. The last couple have been against the Bears, Browns, and Bengals. But, I mean, they're going to have to play these hard teams at some point, and they already beat Dallas to start their season. So they can beat Dallas. They can beat Pittsburgh. And that game was on the road at Dallas, too. So I'm going to go with the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely picking the Giants because they're my favorite team, but I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Steelers definitely could win it. I don't think the Giants are going to win all their remaining games, so they're probably going to lose at least 1 or 2 games. So this could be one of those games. And they have been playing in a lot of close games, which is good that they've now found a way to been winning these close games, but also bad because like 1 or 2 different plays could cost them in close games, and Pittsburgh is definitely a better team than what they have been facing in the last 2 weeks, and Pittsburgh could definitely capitalize on a mistake. So I think it'll be close. I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers won. I think the Steelers are probably even favorites just for a 1-game scenario. That doesn't mean they're better than the Giants, but I think the Steelers are favorites going into this Sunday, but I'll pick the Giants just because they're my favorite team. And they have been playing pretty well as of late. Their defense especially has been impressive with their run defense, the defensive line, and then the secondary has been making some plays. Landon Collins has been playing really well. So I think it'll be a good game on Sunday. So then the Giants, one of their divisional rivals, the Washington Redskins, will be out in Arizona to take on the Cardinals.
Arizona's been very up and down, which is surprising because the past 2 years they've had pretty good seasons. To be 4-6-1, I feel, is kind of surprising. So Washington's definitely, I think, the better of those 2 teams, but it's at Arizona. But I think Washington's the better team right now, so I'll pick them, even though we really need them to lose, so the Giants can have the best shot possible winning the NFC East. But I think Washington's going to beat the Cardinals.
Yeah, I agree. Washington's been playing pretty well, in Arizona. Although they had high expectations, they're only 4-6-1. They have back-to-back losses to the Vikings and the Falcons. So I think the Redskins, they played Dallas pretty tough. They only lost to Dallas on Thanksgiving by 5. So even though it is an away game, I'll agree and take the Redskins, unfortunately. Then we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the San Diego Chargers.
I'm going to go with the San Diego Chargers because I feel like they're definitely a better home team than they are a road team, and that's where they beat Denver. They beat them at home. So, they can beat them, and they can pretty much, I think, compete with any team. So I'm going to pick them. And I don't think Tampa Bay is really that good, so I'm going to go with the Chargers.
I agree with the fact that San Diego's a pretty good team, even though they're under 500, they're 5-6. I think they're still a pretty good team and definitely a better home team. But I'm going to pick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this game. Tampa Bay is 4-1 on the road, which is surprising to see a team with that good of a road record, but they are 4-1, and they're on a 3-game winning streak in the last 2 weeks. They beat the Chiefs, and they just beat the Seahawks. So I think Tampa Bay is for real, and they're trying to make a push to get like a wild card spot in the NFC. Winston is playing pretty well. Their defense is playing really well. They only gave up 5 points to the Seahawks last weekend. So I will pick the Buccaneers in that game. Getting then to the Sunday night football matchup, it'll be, speaking of the Seahawks, it'll be in Seattle as the Seahawks host the Carolina Panthers.
Well, I gotta stick with my team, so I'm gonna root for the Seattle Seahawks, and they're at home, and they're definitely a tough team to beat at CenturyLink Field when they're in Seattle. So I'm gonna go with the Seahawks in this game, even though they didn't look that good against Tampa Bay last week, unfortunately. But I think they're gonna bounce back, and they're gonna win. So I'll take the Seahawks.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'll pick the Seahawks. They're 5-0 at home, even though they looked pretty bad against Tampa Bay. Their offense, at least. I think they should be able to rebound against a Panthers team who's allowing about 25.5 points per game. So the Panthers, I think the Panthers season is pretty much over at this point, and they have to win like all their remaining games. But they've played teams close, but they played the Chiefs really close and the Raiders really close. But the problem is they ended up losing those 2 games after having leads in both of them. So I think the Panthers have just been having a rough and inconsistent season, and Seattle at home is definitely a tough place to play, so I'll take the Seahawks. And then for Monday Night Football, the Jets, the other local team, are in action. They are hosting the Indianapolis Colts.
Well, the Jets are absolutely a mess right now. They're sitting at 3-8, and pretty much their season is disappearing in front of them week by week because they just keep losing games. They couldn't even beat the Rams, who are pretty bad at 6-9. Even though they were home for that game, they were playing at MetLife. Credit to them, they did play the New England Patriots tough at home as well last week. But I just think the Colts are the better team. I trust their quarterback. I trust Luck better. So I'm going to go with the Colts. You know, they're on the road.
I mean, I don't think either team is that good right now. The Colts are 5-6. The Jets are 3-8. The Jets are going to be playing Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback, which I think the Jets probably should go to one of their young guys, Petty, probably, just to see what they have in their younger quarterbacks. But I think the Jets, I think they've been playing some teams close. Like they just played the Patriots pretty close. Even though I think the Colts are a little bit better team, I'll pick the Jets just because they're at home. I think they have the one thing the Jets do well on offense, at least, is the running game. I think Forte is pretty good. So I don't think the Colts are really that good of a team. So I will pick the Jets at home in this one.
Wow, how many do we disagree on? We disagree on a lot this week. At least 4, right? At least.
1, 2. Yeah, we disagree on five games.
I got some breaking baseball news.
What's up?
Rumor mill is circulating that the Giants are in serious discussions with the Tigers for Ian Kinsler and JD Martinez.
That'd be interesting.
What would they be? Does it say like who the Tigers are interested in bringing back?
No, but it's the serious discussions that are revolving around those 2 players as part of a package around prospects and a couple key players in the Giants organization.
I don't know why well, I guess it depends on who the prospects are. I guess I think the Tigers. I mean, the Tigers are a pretty good team. They just need, if they added like one more bat and a pitcher, like their bullpen needs a lot of help. But I don't know. I thought the Tigers would be more of a team that would be looking to add than subtract.
They're trying to ship payroll.
Yeah, that does make sense. one of the reasons why. All right, but
That's
we
all.
are right up on 4 o'clock now, so
Yep.
our show is coming to a close. We will be back with one more show this semester next Friday. And then I'm sure we'll be back again next semester, but we'll have to work out the time on that. But yeah, so we will be back for one more show. Aaron said, as of right now at least, he plans on joining us. So we will be back next week. Thanks for listening to the Nick, Josh, and Aaron Sports Talk Radio Show. And we will see you all next week.
Yep. Have a good week.